On July 4, 2025, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses released its fourth official update of the year. This particular update focused heavily on religious symbols and cultural customs, a topic that has sparked both curiosity and concern among current members and former ones alike. The message was framed around three so-called Bible-based principles, meant to guide individual decisions about what is acceptable in worship. But here's the real question. Is this update about encouraging spiritual maturity and personal responsibility? Or is it just another layer of control wrapped in the language of pure worship? Many are now wondering whether this shift reflects a true doctrinal evolution or a calculated attempt to maintain authority in a changing world. In this video, we'll break down the key points of update number 4, analyze how the organization is reframing old rules, and explore how the Jehovah's Witness community is reacting. Stick around to hear both the surface message and the deeper implications that might not be so obvious. What is the Governing Body Update? The Governing Body Update is a series of official video bulletins released on the Jehovah's Witnesses website, jw.org, often presented by members of the governing body themselves. These updates provide guidance on doctrine, organizational decisions, and day-to-day practices expected of all Jehovah's Witnesses. They're not occasional blog posts. They are carefully scripted messages viewed as spiritual direction straight from God's appointed channel. The updates are often discussed on platforms like JW Talk, a forum for active members, where users react with loyalty, gratitude, or even confusion. These videos also spark broader debate outside the organization, especially among ex-members and independent researchers like O Apologista de Verdade, who analyze the implications behind each update. While JW.org presents the content as loving counsel, critics see it as micromanagement disguised as divine instruction. At the center of it all is the governing body, a small group of men based in Warwick, New York, who are believed by Jehovah's Witnesses to be the faithful and discreet slave mentioned in Matthew 24 verse 45. Their role is not merely administrative. Their teachings are viewed as spiritually binding. In practice, this means that every new video, every phrase, and every interpretation given by them is treated as truth, not to be questioned, but followed. In the fourth governing body update of 2025, the focus shifts toward evaluating religious symbols and cultural customs. Rather than issuing a rigid list of prohibited items or practices, the organization introduces three Bible-based principles meant to help each witness decide for themselves what aligns with pure worship. At first glance, it appears to promote personal discernment, but the criteria themselves still carry heavy implications. The three questions are: would it offend Jehovah? Based on 2 Corinthians 6 verse 17, encouraging members to avoid anything associated with false religion. Would it stumble others? Romans 14, reminding witnesses to consider how their choices might affect the conscience of fellow believers. And finally, how is it viewed culturally? 1 Corinthians 9 verses 20 to 23, urging them to consider local perception. These principles are presented as spiritual safeguards, but some have noticed that they still echo the same tone of cautious isolationism that has defined the organization for decades. One of the most talked about elements of update number 4 is the governing body's new stance on toasting and clinking glasses during celebrations. For decades, Jehovah's Witnesses were discouraged, if not outright prohibited, from participating in this practice due to its supposed roots in pagan rituals and superstitious customs. It was viewed as spiritually dangerous, something that could compromise one's purity before God. Now, the narrative has shifted. The governing body states that each Christian must decide for themselves whether or not to join in a toast, applying the three biblical principles previously outlined. There's no longer a blanket ban, but neither is there full encouragement. This move appears to hand responsibility to individual conscience while still setting clear moral boundaries. In practice, it reinforces the idea that even mundane social customs must be filtered through the lens of organizational interpretation. The release of update number 4 sparked mixed reactions within the Jehovah's Witnesses community. On forums like JW Talk, many members expressed appreciation for what they saw as a thoughtful, principle-based approach. However, others voiced hesitation and uncertainty about how to apply the guidance in real-life situations. As one commenter put it, the principles have always been clear, it's the application that causes confusion. This highlights a recurring challenge in the organization. When vague directives meet complex social scenarios, members are left wondering what is truly acceptable. Another user on JW Talk remarked, "They're not saying toasts are always permitted. They're just saying there's no official rule to enforce. This distinction, between freedom of conscience and unwritten expectations, is where much of the tension lies. While the update may appear progressive on the surface, many still fear the social consequences of making the wrong choice in the eyes of elders or fellow congregants. At first glance, this update might seem like a sign of progress, a step toward personal responsibility and spiritual maturity. Allowing members to evaluate customs like toasting based on principles rather than mandates could be interpreted as a softening of the organization's rigid stance. It gives the impression that Jehovah's Witnesses are being encouraged to think more deeply, instead of simply following rules. But for many former members and critical observers, this shift is less about freedom and more about delegated control. By moving the burden of decision-making onto the individual, while still surrounding that decision with institutional expectations, the governing body maintains influence without needing to enforce explicit bans. The framework may look flexible, but the outcome is often the same: fear of being viewed as spiritually weak or disloyal. In that sense, control hasn't disappeared, it just changed its tone. Update number 4 offers a carefully packaged message: trust the leadership, follow the principles, and you'll remain in good standing. But the fine print tells another story, one where autonomy is granted in theory but restricted in practice. Members are still navigating an environment where community perception and leadership interpretation weigh heavily on personal choices. It's not just about what you do, it's about how it will be judged. So, is this really about pure worship, or just pure control in a more sophisticated form? I want to hear your thoughts. Do you see this as a sign of spiritual growth, or just another layer of pressure disguised as freedom? Drop your opinion in the comments below, and if you're new here, subscribe for more deep dives like this. See you in the next one.